Okay, so Bart put out another video, but it's not even a response to my response, which is very telling. So just to recap before I go into this, I had responded to his video and pointed out 5 things that were false and incorrect. He had stated that I don't know what a hydronium ion is. I went back and showed him my publication 4 years ago, indicating multiple times that the acid in our body actually exists as hydronium ions. Additionally, I pointed out the very first video 1 year ago that he critiqued me on. The very first thing that I said was that the acid actually exists as hydronium ions. So what he continues to try to do is he is trying to character assassinate by, even though he knows that I know that the acid exists as hydronium ions because he's seen videos of me stating this, he wants to continually pull up clips where I just say hydrogen ion, because I've told people many times before, this is how it actually exists, but typically in textbooks it's just referred to as a proton. So he knows that I understand that, and so this is just character assassination, and it's an attempt to try to make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about and like he's super smart, which is not the case. The second fact that I pointed out that was incorrect is that the body does produce ammonia, which he said it does not. I showed that at a pH of 7.4, 1.7% is actually ammonia. At a pH of 7.2, it's about 0.9% exists as ammonia, and at a pH of about 7.1, it's about 0.6%. He's not responding to that, which is very telling to me. He's not even responding to my response. This video is over 3 years old, so he went through about 100 videos of mine, went all the way back for 3 years, and now is trying to character assassinate a video I did 3 years ago, which is also very telling that he took the time to go through 100 videos of mine, go back 3 years, and is going to try to prove me that I don't know what I'm talking about, which I will show in a video even before this one, a year before this one, that I specifically state how sulfuric acid actually exists, but that moving forward, sometimes I'll just refer to it as sulfuric acid. So the third thing that he got incorrect is that we do not excrete acid out in the urine. He was wrong. He admitted that, and I stated in my response video to him that 70% of the uric acid will be undissociated at pH of 5, which is what a carnivore urinary pH will be. So that's the third thing he got wrong, which this is the one thing he actually did respond to that he stated I had correct. Fourth thing that he had wrong is that exogenous bicarbonate cannot alkalinize the body through the alkaline tide, but anyone can look this up, how the alkaline tide works, how exogenous bicarbonate, some does get absorbed, but typically what happens for the majority of how it alkalinizes the body is it decreases the hydronium ion content in the stomach. The parietal cell increases the secretion of the hydronium ion, and at the same time increases the production of bicarb. So carbonic anhydrase can't make a hydronium ion without producing a bicarbonate. So when your body tries to get the hydronium ions back up to baseline where it was, because the exogenous bicarbonate neutralized some of those hydronium ions, it will also produce an equal amount of bicarbonate, which alkalinizes the body. That was the fourth thing. And the fifth thing that he completely lied about is that he's saying I'm just doing this to sell calcium supplements. I had responded and stated I've never promoted or sold, etc., any type of calcium supplements. So that was a complete lie, which again shows the character of this person. He's literally lying to try to character assassinate me. Even in this video, when I mentioned Gerolsteiner water, he's questioning, like, is Gerolsteiner water paying you to say this? I'll respond here and say, no, they are not. But again, this is less about science and more about him trying to character assassinate me because he doesn't like the stance that I take. So he's becoming very, very nitpicky if I don't use perfect terminology all the time. But I'm going to show you that I do understand how this works. So again, let's take a look and see. This is the video that he went back to 3 years ago, one of my very first videos that I did. So he isn't responding to my response video, which is very telling. Why are you not responding to the 5 things that I showed were incorrect in your original video? Why are you going back 3 years and saying that I'm continuing to be wrong? You don't even understand how time works. I'm not continuing anything 3 years ago. You're trying to character assassinate me by going back in time 3 years ago. But I'm going to show you why you're wrong in a second and how I do understand. Because you clearly, if you're going back and looking at these videos, you missed the first video that I covered on acid-base balance. how I actually explain how sulfuric acid actually exists in the body. This was a year before this video. So let's hear what you have to say on attacking me in your video, and also my response to that.
I can't help myself responding to James DiNicolantonio.
You're not responding to me. You are going back in time 3 years ago. You did not respond to my response video. Why? Because you know you're wrong that ammonia does exist, even though you said it doesn't, and you don't want to have to be proven wrong. You did man up and say you were incorrect that the body does excrete acid as uric acid, which I had pointed out. You haven't manned up on alkaline tide. You haven't manned up that, yes, you attacked me on hydronium ion, even though you know that I know that that's how the acid actually exists, because I showed the publication of mine and I showed the very first video that you critiqued of me saying the hydronium ion. And you haven't manned up and stated, yes, you completely fabricated that I'm just doing this to sell calcium supplements. So you haven't manned up and you're not actually responding to my response video. My response video, which is not 3 years ago, which is this video here, you have not responded to, except the only thing you did respond to is state that I was correct about uric acid, that we do excrete acid out in the urine. That's the only thing you're actually responding to.
Ideas. Who continues to be wrong on
No, I don't continue to be wrong when you're looking at a video 3 years ago. You don't even understand time, how time works.
interwebs and continues to have a serious ego problem.
False. Your ego is clearly hurt that I pointed out several things that you're incorrect about. So you're going back 3 years to try to character assassinate me. But I'll go back a year before that and show why you're wrong and prove to everyone that I know exactly how sulfuric acid exists. And I'll also show you my publication where I specifically show exactly how sulfuric acid exists. So I do understand that it's not actually sulfuric acid, which I've explained many times. You're cherry picking, going back 3 years in time, finding one clip and taking it out of context. But I'll show you prior to this video that I clearly understand how, quote unquote, it's really the dissociation products of sulfuric acid, if you want to call it that. But yes, it is sulfate and hydronium ions, technically.
And continues not to be able to accept the fact that he has several things really quite badly wrong.
False. If you would have read my publication or you had looked at the previous video before this one, I have already explained how sulfuric acid actually exists.
In his formulation of the objective reality in which
So false.
we find ourselves with respect to acid-base balance in the human body in particular, and with respect to the required standards of epistemologic.
Okay, so let's look at not 3 years ago, let's go back 4 years ago when I first did my first video on acid-base balance. Let's see exactly what I said here.
And there's other quote-unquote acids that you cannot just breathe out, like sulfuric acid. Now, when we say acids, they technically don't exist as an acid. They exist as an anion and a hydrogen cation, or positively charged molecule. So we typically hear the word lactic acid. Lactic acid does not exist in the body. It's a negatively charged lactate molecule with a positively charged hydrogen cation.
Even here, technically, I'm actually wrong. About 1% actually does exist as lactic acid. So even I'm willing to admit that this statement isn't actually 100% true.
And it's the hydrogen that's technically the acid. Technically, acid is a hydronium ion.
Okay, so even before, here's another video, this is like the third video, where I state that the acid actually exists as a hydronium ion. So why are you not pointing this video out, which was my very first video? If you're gonna go through time and nitpick stuff and cherry pick stuff, why would you not start with my very first video? Because my very first video is how I'm going to go more in depth on how these things exist. So I clearly state that sulfuric acid and these acids don't actually exist as an acid, right? That it exists as the cation and the anion. So again, you're just trying to character assassinate me in trying to state that I don't know what I'm talking about, because you're cherry picking the videos and the clips from those videos.
Ion. It's H3O plus. So we know water is H2O plus, or excuse me, H2O. When you add a hydrogen cation to it, it becomes H3O plus, and that's literally how acid exists in the body.
Okay, so we need to get over it. We're just wasting time here. Stop saying that there is no acid load because there is no sulfuric acid. I've explained 4 years ago and also in my publications that sulfuric acid actually exists as a cation and an anion. It's just a catch term we use, right? So we need to stop focusing on this. There is an acid load. The acid load is via the increased production of hydronium ions when you consume animal foods. So yes, it does exist. Stop saying it doesn't exist because there is no sulfuric acid. I'm well aware. I just pointed that out 4 years ago, and I'm going to show you also my publication that points this out too. So this was 4 years ago. I published this paper entitled Low-Grade Metabolic Acidosis as a Driver of Chronic Disease, a 21st Century Public Health Crisis. And he also tries to state there is no acid load because there's no protons that exist. But here I state how these acids actually exist. So the protons actually exist as hydronium ions. That's explained here. Sulfuric acid, it actually exists as the sulfate anions and the hydrogen ions. And lactate acid, I state here, lactic anions, hydrogen anions. So again, I've stated in a video a year before the one he's nitpicking that it doesn't actually exist as sulfuric acid. My publication in the academic literature shows exactly how it truly exists. Most textbooks, most publications will state proton and state sulfuric acid, but how it actually exists is a hydronium ion and sulfate anions and hydrogen ions. So again, I do know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. You cherry picking short clips from different videos is just a character assassination. So why don't you respond to the actual critiques that I did and not go back 3 years trying to make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about when my publications in previous videos, I already have covered this. Okay, and then we can look at many other videos. So this one is from, if you Google David Quack Exposer, YouTube, it's entitled Bar K, aka Bartholomew K Gets Exposed. There's numerous things that they cover on things that you've said that are incorrect. Like you don't understand what an actual p-value is. You don't understand what an actual r-squared value is. You state that it's a causation coefficient when it's a correlation coefficient. You state that something isn't causative unless it's the r-squared is -1 or 1, which is incorrect because the r-squared for smoking and lung cancer is somewhere between 0.6 and 0.8. It's not 1, and we know that smoking is causative because there's other factors that contribute. It's not going to be 1 if there's other factors that contribute to lung cancer, like genetics. So it makes no sense to state something isn't causative if it doesn't have an r-square of 1. That's just foolish. You can look up lung cancer and smoking and know that it doesn't have an r-square value of 1. Again, because genetics and other things contribute.
That's really what I came here
That's a different question. An association can be causal if the r-squared value is 1.0.
False.
Or -1.0. But no.
False. That is false. Look up the r-square value for smoking and lung cancer. It's somewhere between 0.6 and 0.8.
Nowhere in between those two values.
No, nowhere in between, huh? Oh, okay.
Okay,
Sure.
so because of that, you're unwilling to say the association between cigarette smoking and lung cancer is causal?
It's not me. It's science that makes that assertion. It's ill-disciplined pseudoscientists that forget that discipline and break that rule and communicate.
By the way, he wants to come at me for selling quote-unquote calcium supplements or Gerolsteiner, which isn't even true, yet he promotes his own supplements. And by the way, he doesn't have the studies that he demands from everyone else to support and promote his products. So double standard, anyone?
In a way with the lay public to make them think that these scientists are able to talk about cause and effect from their associations, which have values on the r-squared scale of other than 1.0 or -1.0. Those are the scientific facts still.
False.
Yeah, so where are you getting that standard from?
That is the standard of science.
Where, Bart?
Cause and effect
False.
will absolutely,
Cite-
necessarily by
cite a
definition,
study.
produce an r-squared value of either 1.0 or -1.0 and nowhere in between.
False. Cite the study.
Anywhere in between those two
Why-
figures is
why would
an
that-
association which is not causal
Why would that have to be the case?
because of uncontrolled degrees of freedom, collinearities, and covariates, Richard.
It's exactly the reason why you're not going to have an r-squared value of 1 with smoking and lung cancer, because there's other things that promote or cause lung cancer, like genetics. So it's not going to be 1.
Those are the statistical facts. And if you'd
False.
had any training in statistics, you wouldn't be asking me that question.
No.
You'd understand
This is
it.
really bad.
I've literally never heard any statistician ever claim that before.
They would never.
That
Exactly.
a link can't be causal if the r-squared value.
Because it's false. because every statistician knows that's false, and because he can't cite a single thing to prove him correct.
Is anything less than 1?
Well,
So
what you
where are you getting
what you
that
have heard, Richard, from your little band.
So anyone can look and say something inaccurate. You're not perfect either, right? But there's a character assassination going on with me for some reason.